Welcome back. In the last class, we discussed about polarization transfer technique, how we can utilize the polarization transfer technique like INAPT to transfer the magnetization from abundant spin to rare spin so that sensitivity of our detection gets enhanced. As a consequence, our experimental time also gets reduced. So I showed with a few examples how the signal intensity was enhanced in many examples in different nuclei also. And also we can adapt this technique for spectral editing like attached proton test and depth experiment, which generally adapt people follow in carbon 13 NMR for identification of carbons based on the number of protons attached to the carbon. So this is another important thing which we discuss. Today I will go to discuss about NOE, another important thing where we can get information about the spatial proximity of the molecules. So if there are two nuclear spins which are in spatial proximity, NOE helps us in getting the information about this information. Okay, about spatial proximity information. Now start with the NOE. What is an NOE? Remember, I discussed about decoupling. What do we do at the decoupling? I can irradiate a particular frequency of one nuclei so that this coupling is broken with the other nuclei. Remember, I told you in the homonuclear case, we take two protons coupled like this. It's a AX spin system. Let us consider weakly coupled. I have to sit exactly at the center of this doublet and keep sending the second radio frequency signal for breaking the coupling of this nuclei with other nuclei. And the power should be such that it should be larger than this coupling set. Then only we can saturate this spin. As a consequence, population difference between the energy states of this spin becomes equal. So this coupled spin will not see this in either of the spin states. It sees the average spin state. As a consequence, it appears as if this proton is not coupled to this proton at all. This was the general homonuclear decoupling sequence which I discussed. So we have to apply decoupling power sufficient enough for the right frequency of the proton, which you have to decouple and then see the effect of it in the other part of the spectrum. This could be both homonuclear and heteronuclear. We discussed. Heteronuclear case we saw it is a broadband decoupling. The entire carbon will be decoupled at a time with protons. As a consequence, I said we get single peak for each carbon in the molecule. That's fine. Now, this decoupling we can make it either selective or broadband. The broadband over the broad range of all the frequencies. That is heteronuclear. Okay, this is what happens. So this decoupling can be selective or broadband. In the case of proton, it can be selective also. So what we do is that diagrammatically, in the homonuclear case, let us say two protons are coupled. I am going to saturate this proton and I will apply RF pulse in such a way I am detecting the signal here. Okay, so I am saturating one of the protons which is coupled to this proton. I will see what is the change here. It could be one spin, two spin, many spins can be coupled here. When I hit this proton, then what happens is whatever other protons which are coupled to it, you see the change in the spectrum there. Okay, the complexity would have reduced. If it is a doublet of, let us say this proton is coupled to this, it will make it a doublet. If this is also coupled to another proton, this makes it a doublet of doublet, let us say. It makes doublet of doublet. Now, when I decouple this proton to this, what is going to happen on the spectrum? This will appear like only a doublet because you are breaking the coupling between this and this. Coupling between the proton 2 and proton 3 are retained. That's what happens. So, this is selective decoupling you can do to simplify the complexity. This helps us to analyze and interpret the spectrum and also get the structure of the molecule, which is coupled to which is the proton which is neighbor to this proton. Like that you can keep on getting the structural information. Same thing you can do for the case of heteronuclear. As I said, the entire proton we apply broadband, saturate all the protons in such a way this carbon will never couple to any of these protons. As a consequence, all the carbons appear as a single peak. This is a basically decoupling sequence. Now, there are certain effects of decoupling. which we cannot forget. One effect is disappearance of the multiplet. I told you, let us say 3 protons are coupled. I hit here this proton which is coupled to 2 other proton also. This spectrum gets simplified. If there are, let us say, only 2 protons are coupled, I hit this proton here. Then this proton, what happens? You see, is going to be here. See, there are 2 protons here, which are coupled like this. The AX spin system. I'm going to irradiate here. Then what happens? This will collapse into a singlet. That's one way. Disappearance of multiplicity. And this can happen only when decoupling power is larger than this coupling strength and at the right position. And sometimes, if you go far away, if I start hitting here or not with enough power, it can so happen there is a reduced coupling here. The splitting will not disappear. The coupling can reduce. That is another side effect of the decoupling. Like this is exactly what happens in the case of decoupling. As I showed this, we saturated this peak exactly at the center, and you are going to see a singlet, and this singlet, these 2 doublets collapse and gets a peak of single peak of double this intensity. Both the intensity will add up. This I am irradiating at frequency A. I can also do one thing. I can irradiate here and see this one. This will become a singlet. So that's what happens. And irradiate peak you will not see because it is saturated. Population difference are equal. Okay. Now another side effect of decoupling is there is change in the intensity of the observed peak due to population redistribution. Population can get redistributed and there is a change in the intensity. Either intensity can either decrease or increase. A very interesting thing. And normally in the case of decoupling, you will reduce the multiplicity to make the assignment of the peaks easier. But in some examples of homonuclear decoupling, instead of reducing the peak intensity, the peak intensity will go up. Instead of reducing the multiplicity will go up. You get more peaks than what is expected. Something strange, right? That is called spin tickling. Okay, that is called spin tickling. That is, we will not worry about it. We can also see such type of effects in the end. Spin decoupling. There are several problems in spin decoupling, depending upon the power you apply, the place you are sitting, or irradiating with the second RF and everything. So a lot of effects can be there. And one of the side effect of that is change in the intensity of the observed peak when you are hitting the other peak. The intensity can increase or decrease. And this is because NOE. This is an effect called nuclear overabsorption effect. And for this phenomena to occur, remember, nuclear spin need not be J-coupled. Very interesting thing. This is similar to a decoupling. I can send a second radio frequency weak RF power at the site of one of the nucleus and see the effect on the other nucleus. There can be a change in the intensity of this. It can go up or come down. Incidentally, these 2 spins need not be J-coupled. They can be just closed in space. That's enough. And this is one of the things which is called a nuclear overabsorption effect. And this NOE we say is positive. There is enhanced intensity. This NOE is negative here if it is a reduced intensity. This can happen. Remember, depending upon where you are going to hit, the amount of power you apply, for the duration of the power you are going to apply, the 2 spins which are not J-coupled also, you can see that when you irradiate one of the peaks with RF power, weak RF power, then what happens is other peak which is in close proximity with this can have a change in intensity. Remember this point very clearly. This effect was prepared by, it was first proposed and observed by nuclear overabsorption effect. It is by a person called Overabsorption in 50s. Some historical development. First, what he observed was, he said if you can saturate a conducting electron, then what happens is electrons have larger polarization, 1000 times more polarization than nuclear spins. Then what he says is, because of that, the nuclear spins get polarized, 1000 times fold. This was the theory, and it means your signal intensity goes up 1000 times if you saturate a electron and observe nuclear signal. It's a very interesting phenomena, right? And this was even demonstrated experimentally by a person called Carver, and he called this as dynamic polarization, where he hit electron spin. When that was saturated, he observed change in the intensity of the nuclear spin. But later on, there was another person, Solomon, who is responsible for giving the NOE equations, which I'll tell you later. He showed that this form of polarization transfer can occur not only from an electron to nucleus, between two nuclear spins also. You understand? First, it was done on a metal-like thing where hit an electron, we have a lot of unpaired electrons there, and then see the change in the intensity of the nuclear spin, because the polarization 1000 times more of electron gets transferred to nuclear spin. But now it is possible to transfer nuclear polarization from one nuclear spin to another nuclear spin by hitting one nuclear spin. So not necessarily electron to nucleus, nucleus to nucleus is also possible. And this type of it's called nuclear polarization of means nuclear Overhauser effect, which was demonstrated by Overhauser. This can happen between two nuclear spins also. Now the salient points of NOE. One of the important thing is depends upon dipole-dipole relaxation mechanism. Very, very important mechanism for relaxation. Remember, very important mechanism for relaxation. There are many ways the spins can relax. You apply a 90-degree pulse, bring the magnetization to x-axis. As I told you, it has to go back. When it goes back, it exchanges energy with the surroundings, and finally, slowly, the energy it has gained, it will give to the lattice and go back and attain thermal equilibrium. There are several mechanisms to achieve that thermal equilibrium. Okay, and dipole-dipole relaxation mechanism is very important for NOE, as far as NOE is concerned. It is a through space interaction. As I told you, spins need not be J-coupled. Okay, and NOE I can change the intensity or decrease or increase, and NOE is related to internuclear distance and molecular motion. Very important thing. NOE depends upon distance between two nucleus. If the nuclear spins are far away, even if you disturb this nuclear spin, this cannot transfer the polarization directly to it. It is not possible. Okay. So, and also it depends upon the transfer of polarization depends upon molecular motions. How fast the molecules undergoing motion and what is that motional frequency. All those things come into picture. So there are several points to discuss about NOE. It's a huge topic. So I am not. There are even in NOE, number of NOE experiments can be done. Steady state NOE, transient driven NOE, and in the you can do NOE in the rotating frame called ROEC, ROSI. It's a rotating frame Overhauser effect. Lots and lots of things are there. As NOE itself is a very big topic to discuss. So in next one or two classes, this and maybe next class, whatever is possible, I'll give the salient points of NOE. Possibly we will stick to steady state NOE. If there is time, maybe at the end of the course, I'll select a special topics to tell you about ROE, etc. Some interesting topic. But at the moment, we stick to steady state NOE. And NOE enhancement of intensity. I said there is a change in the intensity of this peak that depends on various pathways available for relaxation. I said dipole-dipole relaxation is the dominant mechanism responsible for this NOE. But in that, there are several pathways. How do they relax? What is the pathway that adapts for relaxation? Is an important concept. And this is the basis and origin of NOE. Remember, NOE depends upon how the spins are relaxing. What is the pathway it is adapting for relaxation, which we are going to discuss now as we go ahead. And it also depends upon the magnetic field at which we are recording the spectrum. The NOE, if you take a molecule, and it depends upon molecular motions, I said. So if it is a very big molecule, with a very small molecule, if you do at low frequency, or if you do at very, very high magnetic field, the NOE it depends on various factors. So it does not depend upon simply they do an experiment like decoupling, send a radio frequency signal and see the change. It cannot happen so routinely like that. There are several factors governing this. It depends upon the molecule, size of the molecule, and which magnetic field you are studying, and so based on the Larmor frequency and the molecular mobility, etc. and also the distance between interacting spins. So many factors govern this NOE. Now, one of the important aspects for NOE is a dipolar interaction. Remember, I told you what is a dipolar interaction. The dipole interaction with two spins has a orientation dependence like this. If it I and S spins are interacting, and this is the R is the distance separating them, let us say it is making an angle theta with respect to the magnetic field. Now, we can get the dipole interaction between these. We can work out and find out taking the magnetic moment of this nuclear spin, magnetic moment of nuclear spin, and get the dipole coupling, everything. Dipole interaction can be easily studied. But in a given molecule, when there are multiple spins, n number of spins, I have taken only 2 spins here. If I take 30 or 40 spins, or any number, n number of spins, let us say, each spin can have a dipolar interaction, dipolar coupling with other spins, because dipolar interaction does not need chemical bond. Dipolar coupling is through space interaction. It doesn't demand a J coupling, I mean covalent bond between them. It is only spatial proximity is what is needed. If the same proton is here, one proton, other proton is far away like this, then if it is more than, let us say, 5 angstrom, greater than 5 angstrom, let us say this separation is 10 angstrom, NOE may not be seen. So it depends upon spatial proximity, because it doesn't depend upon only, it doesn't go through covalent bond. So in the isotopic medium, what happens is dipolar coupling goes to 0. Very interesting thing, the dipolar coupling goes to 0 in isotopic solution, because the dipolar coupling is a orientation dependent phenomena, and as a consequence what happens is in the ensemble average, there is the tumbling motion, this interaction goes to 0. Dipole coupling in solution goes to 0. That's what I said. Remember, even in the beginning for one of the classes I said the dipolar interaction, dipolar coupling do not exist in solution state because of motional averaging. That's what I said. Exactly, I am repeating the same thing. Dipolar interaction is non-existent in solution state. But dipolar interactions are present that will aid the relaxation process. Dipolar coupling may not be visible in the solution state. It is going to help you or help the nuclear spin for relaxing. So it is a dominating mechanism for relaxation. Dipolar interaction is a dominating mechanism for relaxation of the nuclear spins. So it aids in making the nuclear spins to attain thermal equilibrium. Okay. Now, with these salient points, remember I said few things. Dipolar coupling is a orientation dependent interaction and depends upon the internuclear distance. And in the solution state, motional average removes this, and although it is in solution state dipolar coupling is absent, the dipolar interaction is a dominant mechanism for relaxation. Aids the nuclear spin to relax. When you perturb the nuclear spin by sending a radio frequency pulse, then after some time the spin has to attain thermal equilibrium, and this relaxation process helps in making it to achieve thermal equilibrium. So these are the salient points. Now let us understand what are the relaxation mechanism that are responsible for NOE. Okay. First, consider 2 non-interacting spins I have taken. This we discussed already a couple of times. We have only 2 spins considering non-interacting, and there are only 4 possible energy states, right? And 4 possible transition, 2 for A and 2 for X. This is what we observed. The 2 transitions of A and 2 transitions of X are overlapping in an interacting spin. Remember, we discussed long ago. So we are getting in a 2 spin systems which are non-interacting. You get like this. But sometimes we can see, I am taking the example of a coupled spin, because for double quantum excitation and detection, spins should be coupled, dipolar or J coupled, doesn't matter, there must be a coupling. Now in these 2 energy states, I observed the transitions are allowed between this and this, because I said what is going to happen? Only change in the magnetic quantum number is +1 or -1 is allowed. I said this to this is not allowed. Remember, this is -1 to +1. Changing the magnetic quantum number between these 2 energy states is +2 or -2. This is a forbidden transition. but it can happen. Two spins can simultaneously come from beta to alpha alpha, beta beta to alpha alpha state. This is called double quantum transitions. If I somehow make the spins to go up here to double quantum and detect the signal, it is called double quantum excitation. There is a way to detect that. This is a forbidden transition, but we can detect it in a way, some way. Let us not bother about it at the moment. What about this one, 0 to 0? This is this magnetic this thing, quantum number of this magnetic moment of this energy state is 0. This is also 0. This energy state to this energy state, is there a transition allowed? This to this. Is the transition allowed? No, because this is 0 to 0. This is a forbidden transition. Here, this transition, 2 to 2, plus 1 to minus 1, 2 to double quantum. This is called zero quantum transition. This is called double quantum transition, but they are not allowed. Okay, this is the double quantum. This is zero quantum. They are not allowed transitions. But they are forbidden NMR as far as the detection of the transition is concerned. Remember my point. Explicitly, I am telling you. For the detection of the transitions, they are forbidden. But they are not forbidden in the context of relaxation. This dipole-dipole interaction is there that can aid in the relaxation of the nuclear spin. So they are not forbidden in relaxation context, but they are forbidden from the detection of the magnetization. You can excite double quantum and zero quantum. You cannot excite and detect. That's the indirect way of doing. But directly, you cannot send a RF pulse and then start detecting the double quantum. They are all forbidden transitions, but not for relaxation. That's the point I wanted to tell you. Now consider two space J coupled, but not J coupled, but closed in space. This is a condition for NOE. They need not be J coupled, I told you, no. So there is a dipole-dipole interaction. As the molecule undergoing tumbling, the magnetic field at the site of one is varies because of the tumbling of the other spin. At this site of this varies because of the tumbling of other nucleus. This causes oscillatory field. It causes the oscillatory field. The oscillation frequency can be any of them. It can be at W0 or W1 at the Larmor frequency or at twice the Larmor frequency or the difference of the chemical shift. So it can happen. The oscillatory field frequency can be any of them. Okay. This oscillatory field can cause a spins to flip. One spin can flip the other nuclear spin. Okay. Now let us see what is going to happen here. This W2 to W1 flip is also allowed. This is what is happening here. Before that I wanted to tell you one thing. I have written three terms here. W1, W2 and W0. What are these things? This is the transition probability for single quantum transition. This is called single quantum transition. You know, this is the transition probability for double quantum. This is transition probability W0 for zero quantum. So these are all W transition probabilities. I have to take it as W's. Now these W transition probabilities are governed by what is called spectral density function and also on the population nuclear spin different energy levels. Very interesting. You see, W is a transitions probability governed by spectral density function and also population. What is a spectral density function? We will discuss later. We are coming to this class or next class itself. We will discuss. And also on the population of spins in different energy levels. And the rate of change of population and the change in the intensity at the peaks can be easily calculated. Very easy at all. Okay. See, transition probabilities occur at different frequency. W1 occurs at Larmor frequency. Let us say 500 megahertz is my resonating frequency. The transition probability of single quantum transition is at 500 megahertz. The molecular motions and the vibrations, fluctuating magnetic field that arises is at the Larmor frequency. I can take the fluctuating magnetic field, the random, all these vibrations and whatever the motions you get, all these motional frequencies will be there. You can do the Fourier transformation and get the frequencies. And W1 will be at the larval frequency, and it is fastest. W1 is always fastest at the larval frequency. W2 is interestingly is fastest at sum of the larval frequencies of two spins. That is double the quantum, double the larval frequency. This is at larval frequency, this is at larval frequency. You have to add up. So W2 requires frequencies of double the larval frequency. So the transition probability for single quantum is at the larval frequency. Transition probability for the double quantum is at double the larval frequency. For example, the two nuclear spins, a small chemical state separation is there, and we are recording at 500 megahertz. And for the nuclear spin to have a dominant relaxation or W2 transition probability, then it will be at 1000 megahertz. The molecular motions and fluctuating magnetic field should generate the frequencies of double the larval frequency. Remember, if you generate the frequency of double the larval frequency, that is 1000 megahertz. Whereas, what is W0? W0 is only difference in frequencies. What is difference in frequency? There are two protons. One is at chemical state of 5, other is at 10. Only difference is few hertz. Okay, it's not much. It is only a very small value. So it is of the order of few hertz, few kilohertz. So W0 is at few kilohertz. W1 comes at larval frequency. W2, the probability W2 requires for W2 to undergo nuclear spin to undergo relaxation through W2. You need 1000 megahertz. Okay, let us see. 1000 megahertz why I said because I have taken 500 megahertz as the example. Now I'll do one thing. I'll take two nuclear spins uncoupled, homonuclear. Of course, I'll put them in a magnetic field. So close, there is a dipolar interaction. I can't put two nuclear spins which is far away. Too far away, more than 10, 20, 30 angstrom, then there is no interaction. Let us say we have put two uncoupled nuclear spins which have a dipolar interaction that is close in space. Now, for a short time, immediately after you put the sample in a magnetic field, what is the state of our nuclear spins in different energy levels? See, there is no magnetization. Magnetization comes only after you put the sample in a magnetic field and wait for some time. See, outside the magnetic field, they are all randomly distributed. Okay. The energy states are completely degenerate. Now, take the sample, put it in a magnetic field. The degeneracy occurs. Energy states, there is a removal of degeneracy. The degeneracy is completely removed. Whatever the degeneracy was there is removed. Now, the spins have to redistribute within themselves, within their different energy states, according to Boltzmann population, right? It cannot happen immediately. As soon as they put the sample, not that energy separation is there, there is a removal of degeneracy, spins start occupying different energy states and get populated. It takes some time. Okay, the time which requires is called a spin relaxation time. It cannot happen immediately, it requires some time. So, let us say I don't wait. I am very impatient, I don't wait. I put the sample in a magnetic field immediately and see what are the populations. What you will get? All the spins are equally populated. It has not attained Boltzmann population distribution at all. This is called saturated state. Okay, this is called a saturated state. Now if I take this population difference between any transition A or X, it is 0. That is why there is no signal. When the spins are saturated, you don't get signal. So you cannot get the NMR signal as soon as you put the sample immediately, and within fraction of a nanosecond, if you apply a pulse and see the signal, you may not see the signal. So you have to wait for certain time till the spins attain thermal equilibrium. So wait for a long time. Long means few seconds for the spins to attain equilibrium. It reaches thermal equilibrium. Then what happens? Population gets redistributed. I took this example in the earlier, same we'll take the example, 4 spins here, 2, 2, 2 and 0. So that the AX weakly coupled all should have equal intensity. That's why I have taken this example. Of course, there are spins here. Only for calculation I have taken like this. Doesn't mean there is no spin in the beta beta state. Now take the population difference. For both X and A transition, X transition has population difference 2 here. A transition has population difference 2 here. So you get 2 transitions for A, 2 for X. Both are perfectly overlapped and you are going to get only 2 peaks. That's all. Of equal intensity, 2, 2. Remember this. Okay. Now what we will do is, there is a population redistribution and it happens now. Now what I will do is, I am going to saturate one of the transitions here. What I am going to do, I will saturate one of the transitions, meaning I will make it exactly equal. Let us say I will take these 4 spins, I put 2 spins here, and each equated, saturated, this will become 3, this will become 3. I do that. I take this thing and take it there. Okay, saturate. Okay, it should have moved here. Doesn't matter. So now we have 3 spins here, and of course, I am not saturating. I'm sorry. I said I'm saturating one transition. No, I am saturating both the transitions. All 8. I am saturating completely A spin. Both the transitions of A are saturated. So this 4 2 became 3 3, 2 0 became 1 1. Okay. Understand? I am saturating both the transitions of A. Now calculate the population difference of X transitions. What happens? 3 minus 1, 2. 3 minus 1, 2. Yeah, X transitions intensity has not been affected at all. It remains same. But what about A transitions? Both A I have irradiated. Okay, because both A are uncoupled spins. Okay, there is no coupling at all. Just I have written the energy level diagram. Now I am saturating both of them. So populations are equal. You will not see any transition at all. So A transition will now be non-existent. Only X transition is seen of intensity 2. What was the intensity before irradiation? Before after it attains thermal equilibrium, it was 2. Okay, both A was 2, X was 2. Now again it is 2. X1 and X2 both are same, 2 transitions. The intensity of both the X transitions are 2. So what did you achieve? We did not achieve anything. Just because you saturate one of the transition, you did not get any change in the intensity at all. The intensity remains same. So saturation does not mean there is a change in the intensity or over-hazard effect. So you did not get enhancement or decrease in the intensity, none of them. So saturation alone does not work for you. There must be something more happening to see the enhancement. Now wait for some time. What will happen? The system will come back to equilibrium. And then after some time, the same thermal equilibrium 4, 2, 2, 0. It will come to same state. Nothing has happened for you. No interesting thing. You took this sample, put it in a magnetic field, and it attained thermal equilibrium. And you saw 2 transitions for A and 2 for X. Both are overlapping, same intensity. You saturated one of the A transitions, not one, both the A transitions. Okay, then what is happening? A transition will not give you, will not be observed because population of the 2 energy states become equal. That means you don't see peaks for A at all. We recalculated the intensity for X. X did not change the intensity. Okay, your irradiation is done. Afterwards, what will happen? The spins will go back to thermal equilibrium. So nothing interesting happened. Even if you do the radiation of one of the spins, you did not find any change in the intensity. on the other spin, even though they are in close spatial proximity with the dipolar interaction. Then what something more should happen? What is that which is happening for the NOE to occur? That's what you have to understand, right? So for this, we have to introduce the concept of cross relaxation. That is a relaxation that occurs between two spins via dipole-dipole interaction. You understand? We have to introduce cross relaxation. That is the relaxation which is occurring between the two spins via dipole-dipole interaction.